this little zippered project bag. So now it's really easy to do. It's a great way to use up fabrics that you love. You just don't know what to make out of them, or maybe you have a quilt block left over from something that you want to be able to use, or maybe you want to put an embroidery that you have that you've tested out from an embroidery machine, or something you just love but you didn't know what to do with it. So this is a great little bag. You can use it for putting supplies in here. You can make it small, so it's a pencil or a cosmetic bag. You can make it whatever size you want to do. So we're going to go through how to make this bag step by step. So hang out with us, and then if you want to make one alongside us, then feel free, stop, rewind, which you don't rewind, you just go back, and then you can see everything that you wanted to do. So what you're going to need is you're going to need a couple of pieces of fabric. You need a fabric for the front, you need a fabric for the back. And by the way, this was just a bunch of selvages that were stitched together on muslin to make a fabric. So you can do all sorts of fun things. But you just need a back piece, you need a front piece, and then you need a top band piece. So the sizes that I'm going to work with today, because remember, you can make this any size you want. You just want to remember that you have about, uh, let's say, 3/8 around the outside edge that's going to be in binding. So count up to a ½ inch around the whole thing. It's going to be smaller. So if you want the working bag to be 8.5 by 11, I suggest you cut 9.5 by 12. Oh no, 9.5 by 11. I can't do math. Yeah, 9.5 by 12. And that should give you an 8.5 by 11 bag when you're done, right? So you could put something in it. But just bear that in mind. So the bag that I'm going to make today, I'm starting out with fabric that is 11 by 10. Okay, so here's my little fabric sheet. So we'll see if you can see that okay. So we need a piece of the backing, 11 by 10, and batting, 11 by 10. For the front, you need 11 by 8, and the batting at 11 by 8. And for that top band, 11 by 2, and the batting at 11 by 2. And then you need a piece of the you need the lining to be the same way. So you need an 11 by 10 for the one piece of the lining. Then you need two more pieces, one at 11 by 8 and one by 11 by 2 for your lining. So I have all those pieces here, plus you want a zipper that is wider than your project. So this, we're doing 11 inches here, and this is a 14-inch zipper, so it's perfect because we're going to be able to cut off what we don't need. Okay? All right, so I'm going to gather up all my pieces and set this stuff aside. Oh, and then the other thing that you're going to need is you're going to need some binding. And I'll show you how I'm going to bind it. I'm going to use a bias binder, and which I find really easy, and it's more my comfort space, but you can bind it in any way that you like to. And I also have this little tiny piece that's 1 by 5 that we're going to use for a zipper pull, just to do something fun. Okay, so I am going to go ahead and take my fabrics. So I'm going to set my lining pieces aside just for a moment, and we're going to do some quilting on our main body pieces. Oh, before we do, I want to show you the option that I have here. So I mentioned you could do some piecing. You can use that quilt block that you want to use for the back side of your bag. I showed you the back side of this fabric, but if you want to, you can also put a clear window in here. So this is great for kids' school supplies or a project where you want to see what you have inside. So you could just use some clear vinyl for that pocket there too. Okay, so let's go ahead, and I'm going to get my mat over here because we're going to need a pressing mat. And then we're going to work with our fabric. So on our fabric here, you can do any type of stitching that you want. So you can do intricate quilting. If you have an embroidery machine, you can embroider a quilt pattern on here that will hold the layers together. In fact, you don't even really have to do anything. It's just kind of fun. So what I thought I would do here is just do a quick little corner to corner. Just do a quick little grid on my fabric, and I am going to go ahead and lengthen my stitch length just a little bit because I'm not actually stitching seams, so I don't need it to be precisely at a specific, it doesn't have to be 2.5, it can be a little bit longer, and that kind of helps the thread to show, which is kind of fun. Then all we're going to do is we want to use, you can use a quilting bar, which I think is right here, and what that will do is give you even distance that you can place your quilting bar. So you would mark your first line, is always a handy way to do it, and then you can set that how you want it and just follow along. So if I put my foot down right on that, then I can just follow with that quilting bar, so I have a maintained distance that I want my fabric to be, or the stitching on the fabric is what I should say. And it, depending on how close together you want your lines of stitching, it's going to take longer to do, or you can make it short if you want them far apart. It won't take very long at all to stitch your fabric together. Now, I do suggest that you baste your fabrics together, which is an easy way to make sure that they maintain their placement on your fabric and don't shift on you. This is a small piece, so I did not do that, and that's fine too. So now that we're going to come around to the other side, we're just going to repeat this process. So it doesn't take a very long time to do that. And you can use all sorts of different fabrics. This was a set of fat quarters I had out of the same collection. I don't know if you shop that way, where you find lots of pretty fabrics just because you like them, but you don't know what you're going to do with them. So this is a great project for fat quarters. And it's a great way to enjoy a collection without investing in yardage in the whole line. So that's kind of fun. Now the other way we're going to go, when we stitch the other way, I'm going to show you something on this machine that's pretty neat. And we're going to use the built-in guidelines. And you'll notice also I'm not going really tight into the corner. I'm just going to do the last one here. And you don't need to stitch into the corner because that's just going to be held down with the seam allowance anyway, when you put the binding on. So I'm going to take the quilting bar off. Now I'm going to turn on the projection. So when I do that, it will come up and I'm going to turn it on, and I want my color to make sure, I think it is green. There we go. So it's set on green, but I want to move that over. So it is, I'm going to move it over so it's 25.4 millimeters to the right. So that's at an inch. And let's see how I did. Well, that's shorter. So it looks like I need to add, let's try 30, let's see, 35. Well, let's see, let's go back, let's cancel that, and let's see how far over I can go. We'll just go over as far as we can. 30 millimeters as far as I can go. So I made mine a little bit closer together that way, but this way we'll do them at 30, it's fine. So, and actually let me go in here, and can you see the lines okay, Carrie, or should we go into the settings here? Machine. And let's turn, okay, it's already turned down. We're good. Okay, so this is the line that I'm going to line the other ones up to. So I'm going to sew my first point to point, so my corner to corner line. And then I'll line the next one up with the guideline here. And just so it makes it very easy to keep consistent distance away because you can see where you're going. I kind of like this is, you know, our first set of stitches was going about I'd say an inch and 3/8. This one at an inch, the little rectangle this time. Okay, one more on this side, then we just have a little bit more quilting on the other side. All right. And if you've ever started a project and you just didn't have the hankering to finish it, but you liked the fabric and you liked what you're working on, maybe you're doing some applique, this is a fun way to use those pieces and make sure they have a life. So they don't just get stuck in a bin. All right, we're gonna do a little bit more, and then we're just gonna do some light quilting on the front. I think just maybe some rows right in between the actual stitched rows would be really cute. So this is just kind of a fun thing to do that is relaxing, and you're going to be able to just enjoy the process of sewing without having to do a big project. Okay, one more and we're done with this side. So this is the back piece, and it is bigger than the front because it's going to have, it covers the whole space, whereas the front piece is going to be divided in two with a zipper in between it. So let's just run a couple of really quick lines along the stitched line, or the print lines here. We'll just follow the print. This is a good time also to use decorative stitches. That would be really fun. Okay, just a couple of more rows and we'll be done with our quilting. All right, just two more. And of course, you can use contrasting thread or you can use coordinating thread, whatever makes you happy. And I wasn't going to do that last one, but I think that will show, so I will go ahead and stitch that last little line. All right, now on this piece here, I'm not going to run any stitches there. I'm just going to let that be the case, but let's go ahead and press this down and just get it looking really nice. So there's that piece. And then we'll just give our front a little press. Wouldn't a little applique on here just be really cute? And you can use whatever scrap batting you might have. And I press that even though it doesn't have any stitches on it, but it just helps it hold a little bit. Okay, so now it's time to start constructing our bag. So we're going to go ahead and put our zipper on. Now, traditionally, the zipper pull is on the left-hand side, so when you pull it, it goes to the right. You can do it any way you want to. I'm going to go ahead and have it done that way. So I'm going to take my zipper. Let me move it up here so you can see a little bit better. So I have my zipper here, and I'm going to turn it over so it's face down onto the fabric itself. Now, this zipper is longer than the project, so I have some of my zipper hanging off on one side and some on the other, which is good because then the zipper pull doesn't get in the way. So I'm going to just take a couple of quilt clips here, and I'm going to just secure these right on, get my layers together, and I'm just going to get these on. And you don't have to be really fiddly about that at this moment because we're going to take the lining and get that in there as well. So I want to take my front lining. Don't you know I get stuck on the machine? My sweater got stuck. So we want to take the front lining piece and put it right sides down because we want the zipper to be encased inside of that. So I'm going to put them right sides together, and then we're going to clip that into place. Now, a fun thing to know about making a bag like this is since you are going to put the bias binding around the outer edge, if for some reason your size doesn't work or you have a piece of fabric that it's too short or whatever, you can definitely adjust the size of your project right at the very end. So you can go ahead and adjust it. Now, I got that kind of lumpy, so I want to smooth that out. That in there. And get this clip together. Use as few or as many clips as make you happy. Okay, and I'll readjust this last one and we should be good to go. And then we're going to stitch that zipper into place. So to do that, I'm going to run my stitches. If you notice, here's where the zipper is. I'm going to run my stitch about down right about there. So I'm going to run the edge of the foot along the zipper itself, the zipper teeth, and I'm going to move my needle over so that way I can have my stitching be fairly close to that. So let me move my needle over, and that's pretty good because my needle now is going to hit it right about there, which will give me a nice amount of zipper being exposed. Just sew that seam. These go together so quickly. Now, if you make it out of waterproof fabric on the inside, you could very easily have this be a snack bag. Make them small enough and they could be a snack bag for yourself or for your kids running off to school. So let me just press this really quick to get that lining laying down. We'll flip that to the back side. And then we'll fold our quilted piece down as well and press that into place. And if you noticed how easy it was to put the zipper in because the zipper is larger, so we didn't have to wrestle with the zipper head or anything like that. So now I'm going to go ahead and actually give that another press because we're flipping up on the back side a little bit here now. Get that seam allowance controlled a little bit, and then we're going to do a top stitch on this. Okay, so we're going to run a stitch right along there, and I have my stitch set at a 3.0. You can run it at whatever you like, but a 3.0 is pretty good. The longer your stitch, the more the thread will show. So if you want your thread, if you're using a contrast thread, it's fun to use a stitch that's a 3 or a 3.5 just to give it a little bit of a definition. Okay. So there we have that. And now we have our nice top stitch along that edge. So now what we're going to do is the same thing we just did for the front, but we're going to take our top piece. So we have our top piece here, and it looks like my bag's going to be a little bit shorter because I did cut that a little short, didn't I? So, well, actually, nope, that's good. So, which is fine with me because it's all adjustable. So I'm going to go ahead and put that right sides together, right? And then I'm going to take my lining and put it on the back side. So I have the right sides together here, and I'll just anchor that in place. Flip it over, and then we'll put right sides down. This is the lining, and we're going to secure that into place. So no matter if you've been sewing for a long time or a short time, this is really a fun project, and it's really pretty easy to do. Get my zipper up there a little bit. All right, so now we're ready to sew. I still have that stitched moved over. I'm going to again run the edge of the foot along the zipper there on the side. And then we're going to top stitch again, just as we did before. All right. Okay, so now we're going to just press this up and do our stitch. I'm sorry, give it a press. And you want to be patient a little bit because you want to make sure that the batting is in agreement, because a lot of times it's not in an agreement. Okay, this fabric's so cute. All right. That's hot, that's hot, that's hot, that's hot. Okay. So I think I'm going to give it a little bit of a clip at the top just to hold it in place for a minute. And then let's talk about the back real quick. So on our back, all we need to do is take our lining piece and set it down. That's really easy. And then I'm going to take this piece and I'm going to lay it down face up, so we have the right sides there, the lining and the lining. Now what I'm going to want to do is I'm going to go ahead and give it a quick stitch around. I know I need to trim off some extra here, but I'm going to give it a quick stitch around just so I have it anchored into place, and then I can fine-tune the size of it. And when you're at home, just have your rotary cutter ready, and then you can stitch that. Cut it off with a rotary cutter. So I'm just going to start on this edge right here, and I'm going to use the edge of my foot on the edge of the fabric. And actually, with having my needle all the way over to the right, we're going to be good. So I'm going to go ahead and stitch this down just as a base, and just stitch straight. Of course, if you wanted to shape your bag, that might be kind of fun too. You could give it a nice little trapezoid kind of a look, or whatever you might want to do. Okay, and then when I'm ready to turn the corner, just turn and stitch. And then one thing you're going to want to do when we get back up to the other side is we're going to want to make sure that we unzip our zipper, because you definitely don't want to stitch that into it. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and rotate, and I'm going to go ahead and unzip it now because I don't want to be that person that forgot. Okay, and then I'm just going to stitch up. Now when we get to the zipper, I'm going to kind of pinch them closed to make sure that they're closed, and that way we know that we have it contained and there's no gap there. Okay, and now we will stitch across the top. Okay, let me get that repositioned for a minute. All right. Whoops. I got a little bit of a pucker there. I don't want to pucker. Let's see if I can get that out, that pucker out of there. I think it's going to be okay, especially since the binding's going to go over that. Okay, so now we've got that stitched around. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go ahead and trim up our bag. And remember, you can make this any size that you want to. So we're going to go ahead and just cut. You want to trim it to be about 1/4 of an inch around. And then we'll put on our binding, which is going to be really fun. So we're going to use the bias binding attachment for the machine, and so that's really a fun way to put on your binding. All right. Okay, so we just have almost done there. So this is the tedious part of the whole project right here. And if, when we sew in the binding, we're going to shorten the stitch back up a little bit because you don't want to have a really long stitch for the binding necessarily. But if my trimming is a little bit away from the project, a little bit too much for the binding, then we'll be able to easily pick out that stitch. So really cute. It's looking awesome. Let me trim. That one looks a little bit like he needs a haircut, a smidge. And then we'll put on that binding. Okay. All right. So the bias binder, let's grab him. This is a FOF machine. So this is the FOF quilt binder. And just so you know what I'm using, there's different companies have binders. So you may find one that works perfect for you from your machine company. So this goes on really simply. It has the part that the binding feeds through, and then it's going to attach right to the bed of the machine. You also might have access to a bias binding foot, which is fun too. So see if that will, you'll have access to something like that for your machine. And then this one actually comes with a special foot, and it has a flange on the side to hold the fabric in on the edges, and then it also has a beveled bottom, so it can hold the fabric, the bulk of the binding, onto the foot in a very easy way. Okay, there we go. Now that I have that on, let me take it off because I forgot one thing I was going to show you. I want to show you how we're going to put our binding together. I have 2 pieces together, and we're going to need one more. So to go around this whole project, I just cut 3 pieces that were about 18 inches long. Okay, so I need this piece to attach here, and then it's going to fold that way. It's kind of good practice to make sure you know that you're sewing, which direction you're sewing, because if we were to stitch it this way, it would fold back on itself. So we want it to stitch this way. So you put your 2 pieces so they make a right angle, and we're going to stitch from this inner corner to this inner corner. And I am going to turn on my projection here. And then that gives us, let me put the green one, we were using that for our quilting. I'm going to move that back to 0. So it's in center needle position. So now all we need to do, what I like to do is actually put my needle down, and then I move this up so the needle is in that inner corner, and then you can just angle so you can see that you're going to come out the other side. If you have, oh, let me start over there. A lot of people will take this and they will use, they'll mark a line, but with a projection, you do not have to mark your line. So let me put the needle down again and show you that again, and I'm going to get that. There we go. And just stitch right along there, and we'll come out the other side. And then we just want to, you can finger press, you can use your iron, and then let's trim off the back, these pieces that are not used. So I'm going to trim up that side to get that straight edge off, then go across the diagonal, then cut off that edge so that way nothing shows when we're ready to go. Now when you're feeding it into the binder, you want to have it go so the seam allowance is going away from. We don't want it to feed in and have to flip the seam allowance. So I'm going to start with our little what are those, telephones, and this is cut at 1 7/8 inches, and I'm just going to put this back on. If I can find my little hole. There we go. So there's a little hole peg on the plate there that you insert in a hole on the needle plate, and I just took it out, didn't I? There we go. And then the screw goes into this other hole. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we want to start with this piece going in. So I'm going to go ahead and cut myself a little bit of an edge, kind of a sharp point, because that's going to be easier to see. And then I'm going to have it come in, sure, it's going to go that way, fold it this way, so I'm going to have to go this way. Okay, so I'm going to weave it through here, and what this does is helps it keep it flat feeding in, and then just slip it in here. I'm going to grab my seam ripper because that gives me a nice little point, and slip it in. And then this will start to turn back on itself. So you can see it's already starting to turn the edges under. So you want to get it in here. Then we're going to bring it back on itself. And there is our bias that is turned. Okay? And you want to give yourself a nice little tail because you're going to need to close that up. So let's take our project. If you have a serger, that's a great thing to run through the serger, or put a zigzag edge on around this, because that will be very, very beneficial in making sure that everything, that the foamy part is compressed. And I'm going to move my needle over to the right just a little bit, because I want to make sure that I'm catching that. So the flange on the edge of the foot is going to hold the binding to the project, and then our bias binder is going to do the rest of the work. So you're stitching both sides at the same time, and then when we get down to the end, and I think I actually can move a little bit to my left. Okay, so when you get down to the end, what I do is I will just stop sewing. I cut the thread. Then we're going to do a little bit of calisthenics here. I'm going to pull it out, give myself something to work with, put the foot down to hold that. Now what I want to do is just really kind of reinforce the creases there, burnish them a bit, and then I'm going to rotate the fabric, and I want to get my glue stick out. This is a fast drying fabric glue stick, and I want to put some right on the back side of here. I didn't need to go down there, I meant to go this direction. But what that will do is then when you turn the corner, you can press that and hold it in place. It's setting that corner on the back side. Now we're going to go on this side. my lid back on. It is fast drying. And then I'm going to pinch that, make sure that the corner is just how I want it to be. Hold that for a second. Then I'm going to raise my presser foot and pull that binder back toward me so I get the fabric reversed in. And now let's raise that foot up. Put that foot, I'm putting the intersection or the corner right into position, right where I need to start sewing. And now I had that needle down, so now I'm just going to get the binding nice and snugged in. So now when I start to sew, I'm going to go forward a couple of times and I'm going to go backwards just to anchor that. And now we're on our way again. I should mention too, notice that I didn't start right on a corner. I may have started a little bit too far this direction, so I may end up unstitching some of that so we can join our bind down at the bottom, which is probably what I'll want to do. And since this is not a metal zipper, we're able to stitch right over the teeth, which is fabulous. So again, I'm going to put that, cut that thread and just pull straight back so I have consistent pressure on the fabric, put the foot down, and then I'm going to just kind of rub in the crease there, because you probably noticed that we started with completely flat fabric into the binder, so we don't have a it wasn't pre-creased. We didn't iron it first, which actually is pretty fabulous. Okay, so then we're going to turn that corner, which I'm basically feeling where the center is on that binding, and I'm going to put that needle down, and let me raise that out so you can see a little bit more. So I'm going to take this edge of the fabric and kind of put it into where the center is going to be. Then I fold it over and fold that back side, hold that for a second, then we can work with the front. Just a little bit of glue just to make sure that we get those corners all nice and controlled. Okay, a lot of times I'll actually stitch all the way to the very edge of the fabric when I'm putting on the binding, and that works really well. Okay, so now I want to reinsert the project into the binding. So I pulled the binding back and I'm going to get this in here. Now this one, I can tell he's being a little bit crabby. That's okay. Okay, got him. So now I'm going to back up until my needle is over where the intersection of the miter is. Put my foot down and I'm going to stitch forward and then back, just to make sure that that is all ready to go. And I see I've got a little bit of a bubble on the binding, so I pulled that back and off we go. Another thing you want to avoid is having a miter right at a corner. And we're really close, but we did not do it, so that's good. Okay, so I'm going to stitch to the end, cut the thread, and then pull this off a bit, put the foot down to hold it. Another thing that you can use pre-done bias tape to do this if you want to. The pre-fold, it's called the double fold that you would want to get, not single fold. And then you can also use folded elastic, and that's really awesome. So I'm going to put my little bit of glue right there, and I'm going to try to get those tails in there too. And then let's turn that corner, hold that in place, and then we'll take our glue stick and do it again on the front. And then we've got that nice little miter, so I'm going to hold that, raise the presser foot, and then pull this back. Now it's a little bit tricky to pull back at this point because I'm at a seam. Oh, fun. I've got my little seam, so I know what I'm going to try. I am going to take Just stuff him back in there and see if I can get him to go backwards. Nope, he's not going backwards. That's okay. We'll just work with him this way until we get to that point. So, not ideal, but you know, that's the way life goes sometimes. So I'm just going to put him in there, put the foot down, let me stitch, and then reverse like I did with the other ones. Okay, so now I'm going to be a little bit more careful because I want to make sure I fold this binding over evenly, just like it was coming out of the binder. But luckily the crease has already been made on that. So I'm just going to go kind of slow and make sure that I get him all secured in. And we have just one more corner to do. And then if you've ever worked with binding, if you should happen to miss a spot on the back or it didn't quite line up your stitching, you missed something on the back side, it's okay to go unstitch it just a little bit on either side and go back and fix that section. Okay? With an attachment like this, you generally won't have an issue, but where the issue comes into play is if you happen to well, like this, I have the back is the binding won't go back through the binder itself, but I don't know if that's going to give us too much problem. It's a little inconvenient, but it seems to be doing okay. Okay. Okay, now it's feeding normally again, so yay. And we have just one more corner, and before we get to that corner, what I'm going to do is I am going to go ahead and unstitch this and open it up a little bit, so that way we can get in and we can end the binding. Because you do want to do a nice end. You can just, I'll show you a couple different ways. You can simply just fold a piece over if you want to, but you can also do a miter. So there's a couple different ways. Okay, so I got that opened up a little bit. So now let's go ahead and cut that thread. Pull it forward, put the foot down, and kind of give that a little bit of a reinforcement, and then we're almost done. All right, so now on the back side, we're going to put that little piece of glue right there to hold that miter. Again, I'm aiming for the edge of the project to be kind of in that center of the fold of the fabric. And then I will put some glue right there. And then we'll fold again. All right, so now we'll back it up, and this time we have no seam allowance. It's giving us issue, so that's nice. And then we'll just make sure that it is in, that all the fabric is in the guides of the maker. And I have, this can happen sometimes too when you're backing it up, is that this little piece isn't folded quite right. So I'm just going to go ahead and encourage it to fold a little bit. There we go. Now it's all folded. So now we're ready to go. And again, we're going to start sewing a couple of stitches and back up, secure, and then off it goes. And then I'm going to go ahead and back up to reinforce it, and then we'll take that off. And now we'll just pull it out. And it's easier at this point to take this off and get it out of your way. Okay, so we'll just move this. So now what we're going to do is I'm going to take this piece and I'm going to cut him, except for, there. Didn't know where I put my scissors. So I am going to cut him because this is a craft project. So we are going to just kind of lap over the pieces one on top of each other. So I have this piece here, and then this piece I actually want more of this to show because I've already ended it there. So I'm going to come over here, and then you can either fold it at an angle, or we're just going to fold it straight, end it there, and you can see where our creases were. So I'm going to crease it there. I changed my mind on the order of things there. I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to flip this under, and then we can just simply place that right there on the edge so that they meet up. And then we will use our clips and hold it in place. And the quilt clips here, I don't know if you can see them, but they have these little, they have like a ridge on the lower and the upper jaw. So it's perfect for working with bindings because it just kind of nestles right around them. So you could do that, or you can of course use your glue stick. Either way is great. And let me just make sure my back side is not even tucked under. Good thing I looked. Okay, so now that's tucked, the front is tucked. Now we're good to go. And then this one, I guess I don't need the scissors in there. All right. All right, so now I'm leaving everything in the same position. I still have that foot on that has the flange, so we're just going to start stitching. And when we get to here, I'll take one clip off, leaving the others. And then when we get to the next spot, I'll take the clip off. And then we'll continue on. And then we'll do a little reverse, and we'll cut the thread. And now we're done with that. And I'm going to put the foot back, the normal foot back on, and then I'm going to show you how to make a cute little tie. You will have your little, just the little thread tails in the corners where you restarted. So just give those a clip off, and then you are good to go there. So let's take our tie. Where did he go? I left him right here. Well, boy howdy, he disappeared. Okay, so that is fine. Aha, I see him. Don't you know, he fell on the floor. Sorry about that. Okay, so now we're going to take our little 1 by 5 inch strip, and we're going to press that in half. So I'm going to start by pressing it flat, and then we're just going to fold it in half. Use whichever fabric that you think is cute that you want to use. I used the light peach because it wasn't visible on the front. Okay, so now that you have the crease in the middle there, I'm going to fold up an edge to that. Actually, I think what I'm going to do is run just some glue stick right down that edge, fold the raw edge into the fold right there. So we're making just a tiny little strip. And then we're going to do the same from the other side. And we will give it a final press, but this is just such a nice way to do this without burning your fingers on something so small. Okay, so now we have our fabric all placed there. Then we're just going to fold it in half and then just set it with an iron. And then what we're going to do, oops, and I missed. Look at that. I folded it and I missed it. Let's try it from the other side. There we go. So what we're going to do is we're just going to run a stitch right down the very center. We're not even going to really try to straddle it. We're just going to not worry about trying to hit just on the edge. We're just going to do it right down the middle. Okay. So with our, put my normal foot back on and put our stitch right back in the very, very middle. So it's a centered stitch. All right. So the trick is to get it started. And then I will do a little bit of a back stitch here because as we go forward, I want to make sure I get those ends attached as well. And get that, there we go. right down the center. Now this is actually pretty fun to do. It looks really cute, but the hard part is actually getting it through the zipper pull. So we'll see how well I can do that on camera. Okay, so we've got our nice little zipper pull. Let's trim off those extra threads. And I am going to make the edge a little bit of a point, and then we want to get that started through the tip of the zipper. I'm going to rotate so I can do it a little bit easier. Just get that and then grab onto it and just pull. Okay, so now to get it to set really nice, it's kind of like tying a tie. So I'm going to have one leg a little bit longer than the other, and I'm going to wrap that around, and then I want to go one more time and then come back down through the loop that I made. And what that does is that it will have both of the ends going the same direction. And then give it a tug, and then you can tighten up on the one that you didn't. The one that you didn't thread around itself is the one that will give it the ability to slide up. Okay. All right, so there we go. I think that's pretty good right there. Let me tighten it up a little bit. There we go. And then if you give them both just a little bit of a haircut, make them nice and even, then you've got a cute little zipper pull. Okay, it's just ever so tiny, but then you've made a bag, you've made it whatever size you want. And again, you can use different fabrics. You can use quilt squares, and you can make your own. And then you've got these cute little zippered project bags. And this one is really simple. If you want to put a clear window in it, all you do is just cut your piece of heavy vinyl, clear vinyl, and then just add your fabric around the edges and use that as your front piece. So I hope you have fun making your own and enjoy.